Call this meeting to order. Welcome everyone to the Hudson Board of Education regular meeting on Tuesday, August 14, 2007 at 6:30 p.m. I'll call the meeting to order and we'll start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. If we could please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is election of Board of Education clerk. I'll entertain a motion for unanimous ballot for nominations for the clerk position. Do I hear a nomination for position of clerk?
Mr. Chair, I would nominate Cindy Crimmins for the position of chair, or the clerk, I'm sorry, clerk.
Okay, for the clerk, Board of Education clerk. We have a nomination on the floor. Is there any other nomination for clerk? Again, is there any other nomination for clerk of the board?
Mr. Chair, I would move that the nominations be closed.
Can I hold you off until
You
I allow
certainly may.
one more, one more call for nominations? So if there's not any other nominations, then I'll accept your motion.
So move.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Dick and a second by Mark. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is approved. Thanks, Cindy, for agreeing to serve in that capacity. We'll move on to the approval of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
Mr. President, I would move the approval of the agenda as before us.
We have a motion by Tom. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Brian. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, motion is approved. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes from the July 10th regular and closed session Board of Education meeting and the July 24th, 2007 special Board of Education meeting. Entertain a motion for the approval of those minutes.
I would move for approval of the minutes as presented.
We have a
Second.
Motion by Mark, a second by Cindy. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion is approved. Next, we're going to move on to the election for the appointment to fill the vacancy on the Board of Education. We have one vacancy position as a result of Traby Habishaline vacating the board early in her term. So I'm going to follow a similar process as what we did with Cindy and her nomination as clerk. So I'll make a call for 3 calls for nominations. So I'll entertain a nomination for the board position.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to nominate Priscilla Wyeth to fill out the remaining, or to serve the next year to the next election.
Okay, we have a nomination for Priscilla Wyeth. another call for nomination.
Mr. President, I would nominate Erica Charrier.
Okay. Okay, we have a nomination for Erica Charrier. Last call for nomination. Do we have any other calls for nominations? Okay, if there's no other nominations, a second is not necessary for the nomination. So since there's more than one person nominated, we're going to have a ballot process. And if you want to distribute the ballots, if individuals will indicate on their ballot who their choice for the new board member is, you can do that. Okay, this is going to require a majority of the ballots cast in order to determine who's elected. So if we don't have a majority, as I understand it, we'll go through the process again until we can get a majority for the candidate. Okay. We'll do it again. So if board members can reconsider and,
Mr.
Please.
President, I'm sorry,
Yes.
Dan. I was just going to ask, is there an opportunity to sort of just make a comment prior to the next ballot, or would that not be
well,
acceptable?
I guess, to me, it would depend on what the substance of the comment is. I don't think this is a time or a place for advocating for one candidate over another, unless your question is regarding the process.
No. I guess I was just going to sort of, I guess, advocate for my nomination and explain my reasoning, but if you prefer not.
Well, let's continue with this process, Mark, and then
Sure.
see where it leads us.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I think at this point in time,
That's why you need 7, Tom.
That's why we're voting for a seventh one. It's like a poker game.
okay, since we're not able to reach a majority vote here, I think at this point in time, we'll open it up for board members to make comments, and hopefully through that process, maybe we can untie this tie break. So, Mark, go ahead.
Thank you, Dan. First, I really would like to thank all 7 applicants for coming forward. I think anytime somebody's willing to give the time and energy for public service, they're to be applauded, and so I really want to thank all of them. And I think every one of the applicants brought some significant qualities to the table. I read through all the applications thoroughly, very impressive credentials, background, and I really have no doubt that perhaps any one of these individuals would be able to serve very well in that capacity. The reasons that I ended up nominating Priscilla, of course, I had the advantage of having worked with her for 5 years on this board, and I certainly found her to be a very intelligent, articulate, and hardworking board member. And while we may have had some ideological differences, I think we worked very well together, and she would be a good contribution. I guess just finally, from a very pragmatic point of view, I think this board has an awful lot on its plate. We have a lot to do here in the next year, and I think the advantage of having a board member who could really hit the ground running would be greatly advantageous. I myself, when I came on the board, had a pretty significant learning curve, perhaps more than my colleagues, but it was quite a task to get up to speed and learn the fundamentals of board service and just all the things that we're handling. And I think even Ms. Wyeth would have perhaps a small learning curve, having been off now for more than a year. But I definitely think she could make a contribution more significantly and much quicker by virtue of her having served. In addition to that fact, I mean, I think we should keep in mind that this is just for 8 months. The election is next April, and so I think what we're really trying to do here is to do what's best for the board and the district in the short term. The public will ultimately make this decision, as they should. But again, I just think that what we need right now is an experienced member who can make a contribution right from the get-go.
Thank you, Mark. Other comments? Tom?
Yes, I wouldn't dispute anything that Mark has said about Priscilla. I think she's a solid candidate. I think there were a number of good candidates here. I mean, I was frankly impressed and gratified by the fact that many good folks wanted to take on this responsibility. But going through it, there are 4 things that I cited with Erica Charrier, and I don't know her personally, but just from what I've read and reviewed and so forth, but 4 areas that that were the criteria for me. Number 1, a long tenure in the district. She's been in the district a long time, in the community a long time, so certainly has a hand on the pulse of our community, I believe. Secondly, has a child in school district right now. I think that's important. I think not that anybody else that doesn't would have a less vested interest, but I think we certainly would. I would certainly think that she would have certainly a personal interest and ownership of it. Thirdly, she brings a network of the community. Her involvement with the Moms Group and other organizations, other groups in the community, I think gives us an advantage of keeping again our ears to what the community is saying. And finally, the service to the district that she's provided. She's been involved with a number of committees, been involved as, like I said, a number of committees with the district, and certainly has proven that she's engaged and interested and committed.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Any other board members? I don't know if any of the candidates are here. Priscilla or Erica? Do you wish to get up and make a statement? Or any of the other candidates? I guess. Okay. Could you come forward to the microphone? Maybe if you could just highlight some of the items on your application. And right down in front, Erica.
Hi, I'm Erica Charrier. This is actually my second board meeting I've ever been to, so I'm glad to be here. I had to remember where the auditorium was, so sorry, that's why I was late. But anyway, the reason why I decided to fill out the application is, first of all, I want to get more involved within the district, but I just didn't know how. I've been the vice president of the parent group, and then at the same time, I was also offered the opportunity to run for president of the Hudson Moms Group. So at that time, I decided to take a different focus and get into that, since I guess the demand was there that nobody ever, they say that I was stupid to run for the position, but I was excited and grateful that they actually asked me to do that. So I took on the role of president and therefore just attended the parent group meetings and didn't really take an active role as far as serving on the board. I do have, actually I have 3 school-age children. I have Max, who will be a 6th grader in the middle school, and then I have 2 children that are in 3rd and 2nd grade at EP Rock, and then a 3-year-old. So I'm busy, I'm involved in all of their sporting activities. My core group of friends, however, does come from the moms group, and that's where I expressed to Mary when I spoke with her on Monday that I feel compelled that it's my job to be able to provide even if I'm a sounding board for these young moms and young parents to be able to come and say, I don't know what to do. I don't know anything about the school board. I don't know how I can get involved. I don't know if, what is my role as a citizen here, so that my kids can be in a good-sized classroom. I really want to be able to be of service to the families in the community. I think there's just a lot of parents from my perspective of my generation that don't understand that, our real impact is before our kids walk in the door of the school. It's not when they get into kindergarten that our impact, we need to be out there advocating for larger classrooms, more schools, etc. So I wanted to jump on board and kind of help move that forward, and I'm excited, willing to learn, wanting to learn in all areas and all aspects. So.
Thanks, Erica. Just out of curiosity, how do you say your last name?
Sherrier. It's
Sherrier?
like CH, yeah.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
thank you.
Okay, I guess at this point in time, unless board members have other comments to make, we'll take another ballot. Thank you, board members. We have broken the tie, and Erica Sherrier is the new board member, so congratulations. And again, thank you to all of the candidates for this vacancy. They were all very good candidates, and it was for one, it was a very difficult decision, so I think they would have all made good board members, so congratulations again. At this point in time, I would ask for a motion to destroy the ballots.
So moved.
We have a motion by Cindy. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Tom. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Yeah, the motion is approved, so we'll go ahead and do that. At this point in time on the agenda, we're going to move on to correspondence. Cindy, do you want to?
Yes, we did receive a thank you for our support during 36 years of service to the school district from Jean St. Marie, who retired this year.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next item, staff student recognition. Isabel Barr, School Age Care Program. Nancy?
Yes, I'll speak to that. Isabel Barr was invited to the board meeting tonight, but was unable to attend. But I'll talk about Isabel and talk about what happened recently that caused us to refer her to you for recognition. Isabel has worked for the school district for a number of years as an educational assistant in special education, and also for several summers as a school-age care provider. And it's in that capacity that recently she had an opportunity to respond to a life-threatening situation of a student in the school-age care program. The school-age care program operates at Hudson Prairie from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday during the summer, and this program is paid for by the parents of the children. In this instance, an 11-year-old child began to choke on a cookie. He had learned in his other educational experience a gesture to tell someone that he was choking, and that gesture is to cross your arms and hold your throat. Isabel also had been trained, and she knew what that meant. It might be obvious, but she knew what that meant as well. And she's also been trained in the Heimlich procedure, and she proceeded immediately to help dislodge that piece of cookie that this child was choking on. So she was there at the right time. She knew what to do. The child knew how to communicate, and it's a wonderful outcome, and we wanted to make sure that you knew about it and that the public did too.
Thanks, Nancy, and thank you a lot, Isabel, for your outstanding work there. It's really great to have all of our school staff and educators and everyone caring about individuals within the school district in that manner. We'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Dan, could I?
I'm sorry?
Could I just ask a question regarding the incident? First of all, I think it's a wonderful fact that we have staff that are prepared for situations like that. Being in an environment in the YMCA, we also understand the risks that we have with children. My question, I guess, is Isabel, has she had special training, or did the staff have training on CPR?
Yes, Isabel has had special training because of her role as a special education assistant in first aid and CPR.
And all staff with the school-age child care
I'm
program have
not
training?
sure that it's a requirement.
Okay. Something that I would advocate with minimal cost and time. It's important, I think.
Well worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This incident, I think, bears that out, so.
Thanks, Tom.
I'll find out the facts on that, and I'll let you all know.
It's a good
Thank
point.
you.
Thanks, Tom. Then we'll move on to the superintendent's report. Mary?
Thanks, Dan. First, I'd like to talk about our school manager position, that thanks to your support, we have a new one-year position, or 2 one-year positions of school managers. And this is an opportunity for us to hire someone, a teacher, to work in a position of leadership and to invest in their development as a future principal. It allows that individual who is in that role to be coached by successful Hudson principals. And we have 2 of our school managers here this evening that I'd like to just introduce to you and have them speak to you. This is a great opportunity for us as a district to, again, invest in that development. But many of us who became principals really went from the teaching position to a principal position without much support. This kind of opportunity allows us as a district to support those people to be successful in future principal roles. So I think it's a great opportunity for us and provides us another professional development opportunity for staff as we look to the future of additional leaders in the district. So first I'd like to introduce to you Erin Danielson. Erin, would you stand up and come forward? As you know, Pat Hodges, principal at Willow River, will be taking on many responsibilities this coming year to work on Rivercrest, where she will eventually be the principal. And you have supported her in that role by hiring a school manager. Aaron Danielson is the school manager for this next year at Willow River. Aaron comes to us from the Stillwater District, where he's worked for 6 years?
7 years.
7 years.
Yep.
Oh, 7 years in 6th grade. Is that
That's
right?
correct.
Okay. And Aaron has a master's in education, and he's going to finish his principal licensure program in October. So it's great to have Aaron join us in the Hudson School District, and we're looking forward to his contributions. Aaron?
First of all, I want to say I'm very grateful for this opportunity to come to the Hudson School District. Teaching in the Stillwater School District for 7 years, heard many wonderful things about Hudson, and just very grateful to have this opportunity under the leadership of Pat Hodges. She's looked upon highly within the district, and I'm glad to have that opportunity to work hand in hand with her. As Mary talked about, typically principals will come from the teaching realm right away and jump into that role, and there's a big learning curve. And I think a couple of you talked about the learning curve, the first time coming into on the board. And this will help guide in my development and strengthen my development so that hopefully in future years, as I hopefully will be able to stay in the Hudson School District, my development will be stronger, and I'll be a stronger administrator when I come into that first year when I take over the building by myself. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity. I look forward to working with all of you, attending board meetings, working with the staff, students, community, and building relationships. So I appreciate this opportunity tremendously. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
And our second school manager is Dolph Schmidt. He will be the North Hudson school manager. Come on forward, Dolph. And he will be mentored by Peg Shoemaker, who is the acting principal at North Hudson, as well as her role as Associate Director of Learning Services. Dolph has been a teacher in the Hudson School District for 11 years. Presently, he's at 4th grade at Holton. And during the principal search at Holton, Dolph became one of the finalists. So it was a perfect opportunity for us to be able to put him in as school manager at North Hudson. Dolph.
Well, I also want to just thank the board for being visionary. I look at our district and I see a vision that I'm aligned with. I see us going in a direction where we're always thinking about how can we improve student learning, but doing it in a way, as Mary used the phrase, with support. There's been several initiatives that the district has implemented that I really think have supported teacher progress to improve student learning, starting with the Steve Dunn training and the 2 literacy coaches at the elementary. You have helped improve teaching practices to improve student learning, and I am so grateful that the district is going in that direction. I'm also thankful that you also not only looked at how do we support teachers to become better practitioners, but you've looked at people who are looking at being administrators and how can we give them the same support. When Mary approached Peg and I to do this, it was a risk. It was a little more comfortable looking at Holton, but the support that you have given me, I have in this district, there's no one I respect more than Peg Shoemaker to be a mentor. She has an unbelievable talent at what she's doing, along with the integrity of, as much integrity of anyone I've ever met. So to be able to work with her, to learn from her, and to support the students at North Hudson, the parents at North Hudson, and the staff at North Hudson, I'm really excited about. And I'm just thankful that our district would look at this as a viable option, that you could see the value in also supporting teachers looking at becoming administrators. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dolph. We'll move on to the next item under the superintendent's report, Rivercrest update. Mary?
Well, Rivercrest certainly is moving forward. If you have been out to the site or passed it on your way home or to and from work or to and from the district, You'll see that they have been preparing the site, moving a lot of dirt. In fact, it's continuing to progress in that area. I heard that fire hydrants are out there. They're a little tall. They are not put in. Sorry, I forgot that. I couldn't think of that right this minute. But the utilities are being put in at the present time. So we are moving forward. There is bid package 2 is going to come to you in September. It's going to come to you in 2 parts because it will have so many contractors and pieces to that bid package. So you can expect that at your September 10th meeting and then another part at your September 25th meeting. We have identified local contractors who have been contacted to bid, and also many of the contractors who have been interested have contacted Tim, Jim Stayskull, and Hoffman, and we have made sure that they were included on that list as well. Let's see. Oh, we have been meeting with the Hoffman team. We just had a meeting this week. We are picking out colors. Pat Hodges has been working on that. Dick has been helping to identify many of the features that we will be having in the building. So we're really moving down to some of the real detail work and continuing to make decisions. One of the decisions, or one of the areas of decision making that is significant, is about sustainability. And there are a number of things that we have to decide as we move forward. For example, we just had a conversation about bike racks and including bike racks. Certainly when we think about sustainability, being able to bike to school as an employee or as a student certainly saves and is friendly to the environment, but when we think of the conditions of the roads and the accessibility to that site, it can be a very dangerous situation for our students. So we needed to talk about that in relationship to how can we discourage students to bike to the site, and yet how can we also encourage staff, if they would like to, or to bring families to the site at some point, so students coming with adults later on, to use the trail that surrounds the site. So we have decided to put bike racks. They're going to be close to the trail, and there will be one of the things that we have to add as a sustainable element is to have a shower so that a staff member coming to work and biking to work can then shower at the school. That shower will not only be for that kind of usage, but we have early childhood students who will be there as well, who may have accidents at times. The shower may be very advantageous for us for other reasons. So we are continuing to move forward and make a number of decisions that have an impact on our environment, and those are an area that we're really working on. We're also working on our YMCA partnership, and Pat Hodges and Sandy Kovac attended a meeting with the Y and identified some significant areas that we will be exploring further to start in that partnership. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, or Dick, who is also on our team, and Tim as well.
On budget, on time so far.
Okay, thank you. Mary, I guess we'll
One more.
keep with you, the beginning of the school year topic.
Much is happening. Students are now coming to school and registering both at the high school and at the middle school. A lot of preparation going on for the coming school year. Can't say enough about our facilities and grounds crew under the direction of Jim Stayskull and all that they have been managing and are getting ready. We are in the throes at the district office of moving. That started today. The Administrative Service Center, where we will be moving out at Exit 4 on Brocky Drive, is ready for us to move into. So we started doing that today, and they were doing it even more quickly than they anticipated. So we've been able to move up the schedule and should probably get that done about the end of this week. And as we're sitting here right now, the rooms that we are vacating are being converted to high school classrooms. So about the time they take everything out, another crew walks in and starts working on converting those classrooms. Certainly, we have a short time frame for that to occur, but everything is really on schedule, and Jim and his crew, thanks to Jim and his crew, to be able to have this well organized for us to move forward with. We will be starting to have committee meetings of the board out at the Administrative Service Center as soon as we're finished moving in. We have sent this summer a couple teams to different conferences. One of them, as you're aware of, is a team headed by Peg Shoemaker, went to New Zealand to look at practices, best practices there. That was almost fully funded by private donations, and they have brought back many new ideas for us to consider and to share with our staff. We have had the administrator leadership team meeting. We have a workshop in the summer, a day-and-a-half session where all the administrators come together to focus and to plan for the new year. And both Dolph and Aaron were there, and we appreciate their contributions. We studied, or we read the book, Good to Great, and spent much of our time talking about the concepts and how that applies to the Hudson School District. On Monday, teachers will be participating in the Summer Academy, and Peg Shoemaker has worked very diligently on that, and I know Sandy has as well. So they will be learning about and improving their practices through their time learning together. On Wednesday of next week, our new teachers will be coming back. The Chamber of Commerce is holding a luncheon to honor and to welcome our new teachers. And they will be working for the rest of the week, and the veteran staff and teachers will be joining them on the following Monday. And then on Tuesday, is it the 28th, we will have our all-staff welcome, and we'll start with a breakfast, and then we will have a session together, and staff will go out to the various buildings and department meetings and so forth as they prepare for our students to come back. And September 4th is the first day of school. It's coming up. As far as enrollment, just to give you a heads up on that, we are implementing at elementary, again, this is one more year of our CAP classes for those that reach the guideline that the board has set. And then we will be transporting any of those new students to other schools that may have spaces. At elementary, our numbers are up, and we'll see where they are. We expect to find some more students who have moved and are going to other schools, so there still will be some changes. At the middle school, our numbers are up again, and I heard a conversation out in the hall. Principal Dan Koch was talking to Principal Ed Lucas, and Dan was saying, I have 4 lockers left at the middle school. Do you have any lockers? So we are certainly looking at more students. The high school is holding their own. And I will be coming back with more information about our enrollments in September.
You can take a breath now. Okay. Thanks, Mary, and thank you for all the work that you and your colleagues do in this move, and Jim Stayscall and all those that are helping with that process. And I guess related to that, I would just ask that members of the community and staff just be cooperative with your office in the next few weeks, because I'm sure you're probably not going to be answering the phones right off the bat as you're going through the move. So we'd appreciate that cooperation. With that said, we'll move on to reports. And Tim, do you want to guide us through this? And if you could do me a favor at the very beginning, just sort of give us an outline of, what step of the process you're in right now, recognizing that, what we're going to be discussing tonight in terms of the preliminary budget, and we're really looking at some early numbers and estimates, and nothing is set in stone at this point. So,
No,
thanks, Tim.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you have that right. I can only guarantee one thing right now, and that is the numbers that you have right now will change as we go through the process of the budget development and getting to the final budget and the approval of that budget. In regard to that, also, the legislature is continuing to do their work on the budget, as we do not have a funding bill as of yet. So everything that you're going to be looking at tonight is based on current law, and we're monitoring the legislature and some of the changes there also, and we'll be bringing you information as we find out more about those changes. But the first item, which I believe it's a loose leaf, upper right-hand corner, agenda item 10A, and that is the fund balance in the general fund. Okay. The general fund balance as of June 30th of '06, which was last year, was $17,550,984. And if you remember, we did designate some reserves, and those reserves were $3.5 million for Rivercrest Elementary, and we also designated $1.5 million in reserves for a secondary solution here at the high school, which turned out to be the Administrative Service Center. Keeping that in mind as we work through this, on the second line, right now, we have an estimated increase in fund balance for '06-'07, and again, it's estimated in large letters, emphasized, of $600,000. We feel at this point, in closing out the accounts, that we're going to have revenues exceeding expenditures by about $600,000. So our estimated general fund balance at the end of this past fiscal year, June 30th of '07, will stand about $18,150,000. If we start to look at the uses of that fund balance and to give you a picture of what the fund balance will look like after we expend all of those designated monies, it looks a little bit like the second section, and that's use of fund balance. The first piece is the designation for the Administrative Service Center and related repurposing expenditures. And now that's a remaining balance of $1,612,000. If you remember, we had the 1.5, and then when we got further into the process, the board had approved using some additional fund balance. Because we closed the building into this fiscal year, the '07-'08 fiscal year, we will be taking that out of the balance for '07-'08 rather than the '06-'07 fiscal year. So we've got remaining about $1,612,000 in expenditures that will come out of that fund balance for this year. The second designation, and that's for Rivercrest Elementary, is $2.8 million. So originally that was 3.5. We spent about $700,000 in '06-'07, and so the $2.8 million will be spent over '07-'08 and over the '08-'09 fiscal years. So again, to give you a picture of what the fund balance will look like once we've expended all of those designations, we will end up with a fund balance of $14,338,000, $14,339,000. And again, these are estimates at this point. So,
You want to take questions at this point
Sure,
in time?
you bet.
Board members have questions for Tim?
Tim, I have two. The two questions. The 2.8 is allocated for 2007, 2008, and then the remaining balance, the 3.5 million, would be allocated 2008, 2009.
Well,
Is that-
actually, we'll kind of touch on that as we go through some of the other budget documents, but
Okay.
the 2.8 is what's left. We've spent 700 in '06-'07,
Okay.
and that's out of fund balance. So we have left 2.8, which will be spent. The majority of it will be spent in '07-'08, and then we'll have some additional expenditures in '08-'09. And again,
Okay.
these are kind of that's a soft number. Because I can't tell you exactly how much we're going to spend in each one of those years. I base it somewhat on draw schedules that we have from our construction management and what their timing of expenditures are looking like at this point in time, and that too is subject to change over time.
Then the second question I have, which I'm sure is on the minds of all of us, is the 14.3 million. Where does that fall within on the board policy of 25 to 30%?
And that would be about 31 and a fraction percent.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments, Tom?
Would just comment that the estimated end of the year residual of $600,000 falls within 2% of the annual budget, which was the goal for this board. So, our intention was to have a budget that would be reflective of real costs and not have a great, not looking for large surpluses. So, so that was good news.
Yep. Thanks, Tom.
Again, I just want to emphasize with Tom's comment that the numbers are preliminary yet, so
Yep.
we may have some fluctuation.
One other point, Tim, I think is worth mentioning whenever we get into this discussion about fund balance, because I know 18 million or 14 million, whichever number we're looking at, seems like, at first glance, that's cash in the bank, and it really isn't. It's, that's made up of accounts receivables and not purely cash. And then the other point I think is worth making is that, there are ebbs and flows in terms of how our cash flow goes during the year, because we don't get the funding from the state and the local levy, parceled out throughout the year. It comes in sort of clumps throughout the year. In the meantime, we have to, make payment of our other operating expenses and salaries and all that stuff,
Right.
in those in-between periods.
Yes, yeah, you're absolutely right. Fund balance is not cash. Fund balance represents assets minus all of the things that you owe, liabilities. And if we were, for example, if we're a business and we were to liquidate everything tomorrow, we'd have some cash, we'd sell our assets, and then we have to pay off our liabilities such as loans, accounts receivable, et cetera. What's left over after that is what the fund balance represents. And two, as you mentioned, how we have this ebb and flow, cash balances, I think, on a quick review of some cash balances, our cash dips down and can dip down into a $4 million range as we pay. We still have to pay or make our payroll. We still have to pay all of our expenses, but yet the timing of our tax payments and state aid payments don't always correlate, prorated on a monthly basis. So we do have the need for a strong fund balance in the district.
Dan, if I could just make a brief comment, and while I think we all recognize there's an ebb and flow to the revenues to the district, I would like to see the board, try to hit our target policy of 25 to 30%. I think we arrived at that figure, conservatively and taking into consideration the ebb and flow of funds, and that even, I think, Tim will agree, is a pretty healthy fund balance as it stacks up against other districts. So while we didn't go over our target too much, I guess just sort of a little cautionary note, if you will, that let's try to keep it under 30 if we can.
Thank you, Mark. Tim, do you want to go on to are you done with the fund balance? Are you ready to go on?
Yes.
Okay. Item 10B, the preliminary budget.
Okay. You've got a few different documents here, 3 different documents. And the first piece I put together is a narrative of, not in the board books, I'm sorry. That would be the loose leaf pieces that were put at your table. The first piece is a narrative of the fluctuations in our 06-07 actual activity versus our 07-08 budget activity. The second piece, 2-page front and back on the document, is a summary of each fund balance expenditure, and each fund balance revenue. And then the third piece is a calculation on tax impact. So I guess I would start with the narrative side by side along with the fund balance revenue by fund. And I'll just hit on a few of the major points. The general fund, which accounts for most of the school district's expenditures, other than those that are required to be in separate funds, we're estimating at this point for the 07-08 budget to have an increase in revenues of 2.55%. The Special Revenue Trust Fund, and those are grants that are given to the district. Some of those come from the Education Foundation, et cetera. We're projecting out, and we're a little conservative with that because we're not always guaranteed some certain dollar amounts for those grants. Special Education Fund, that fund, again, as we've talked about the budget before, you take how it impacts the general fund is when you take all the different funding pieces for special education and then the expenditures for special education. The expenditures that are left after you net the two together are made up in the general fund. So it does affect the general fund and the special ed are kind of linked together even though they're separate funds. The referendum approved debt service fund, those are all of the different bonding issues that the school district has had over the years for capital projects, and those are all voter approved pieces. Capital projects fund is one that we only use when we're building a new building such as Rivercrest Elementary. The food service fund is a required separate fund, and that's a non-local taxpayer funded dollars. Our private benefit trust fund, those account mainly for scholarships when organizations or individuals donate money to the district, request those to be put into the scholarship for students. That's what we account for in the private benefit trust fund. The employee benefit trust fund is a trust account set up to cover the school district's other post-employee benefits obligation, and that is to retirees for health and dental insurance. It's something you probably have read a fair amount about over the years, and we do have a liability. Fortunately, the school district is funding that liability because if you don't fund it, the liability continues to grow because you're not putting any money in, you don't have any earnings on those dollars. Community service, that would be easiest way to remember that one. Those are mainly your community education classes, and then also linked to community service, we account for school-age child care in the extended daycare fund, Fund 81. And then we've got our last piece is a vocational co-op, which is a contract, mainly contract with our CISA group. So that's just kind of a real brief rundown on the funds and what they account for. Now I'll take a quick look at the variances of those funds. And one thing again I do want to point out in the narrative is that these amounts will change, and the legislature has not completed a funding bill, and so this budget again is based on current law. So one of the larger variances you will see is in Fund 39, which is a referendum approved debt service fund, and that's under the revenue side. You'll see $14,660,000 was our 06-07 activity, and in 07-08 we're budgeting $4,882,000, and the main difference there is how we're required to account for debt service, and what we wound up doing is putting our refunding general obligation bond of $9.5 million for Rivercrest into, we have to count that as revenues in the referendum service fund. The next difference that you'll see is under Fund 49, which is capital projects. And if you remember, we had that three-phase bonding that we did for Rivercrest. We also had $9.5 million in bond anticipation notes, which are short-term in nature, and we're actually going to be paying those off the end of this month. When we receive those dollars, those actually get booked into capital projects as revenue for the construction project. And so you'll see the $9,700,000 in the 06-07 activity and only $2,740,000 in the 07-08 activity. The $2,740,000 is the last Phase 3 issue of promissory and 10-year promissory notes for Rivercrest funding. Under the expense, if you turn the page to expenses, it's on the back side of the sheet with the revenues. You'll see the general fund, Fund 10, is showing an 11% increase. However, the reason that's showing that increase is we do have $3,112,000 of costs that will come out of our designated reserves, and that's $1,612,000 for the Administrative Service Center and $1.5 million for construction of Rivercrest Elementary. And the $1,500,000 again, that one will be a little softer number. That will be an estimate of what we think we'll be taking out of the general fund for 07-08. So if you take those two items out, then our increase, if you recalculate that percentage increase, it's 3.96%. The other variance that I'd like to hit on tonight is, again, Fund 39. On the flip side now, we're looking at the expenditures in Fund 39. Last year we had $4.8 million. This year we're budgeting $14.1 million. And the reason for that, again, is the paying off the bond anticipation notes for the upcoming month here. And then Fund 49, Capital Projects Fund, the difference there going from 0 to $14,100,000. That's an estimate of the cost that will be incurring in 07-08 for the construction of Rivercrest Elementary. Any questions on the revenues and expenses?
Any questions for Tim before he moves on? Okay, thanks, Tim. Go ahead.
Sure. Okay, then the final piece tonight is, what does it look like tax-wise? And again, we'll caution everyone that these are estimates preliminary. You know, we get our district valuation from the Department of Revenue in October, and at that point in time, then we'll be able to tell you exactly where we stand with the increase in the mill rate. But what we've done, if you go to the very bottom under 07-08, see district valuation is at $3,530,564,000, and we've applied a pretty conservative 5% increase. Of course, if you look at that history under percentage change in valuation over the years, last year was one of the first years where we really had a single digit, 9.97%. Versus 13 and 14%. So, obviously, as everyone knows, things are slowing down. So we want to be conservative when we estimate what our district valuation is going to be. The total levy is $24,267,000, and that's how it stands with our estimates and projections for the budget at this point. And that $24 million is going to make up a little over $4 million in levy to pay bond payments, and then the balance is general fund levy. So we wind up with a change of 0.95% over the previous year, and the mill rate is at $6.87 preliminary, and that's a change which is a decrease of about 3.85% over the previous year. So any questions?
Any questions for Tim at this point? Okay.
Where should
Dick?
we jump in with questions or comments?
Right now, go ahead.
State levy limitation last year, $2.5 million under. How far are we under
About
this year?
2.9 under last year.
2.9?
Right.
Okay, how far under would you estimate this year?
I would estimate at this point in time will be somewhere in the $4 million range.
Am I correct in saying we're one of the few districts in the state that's not levying up to their limits?
You would be correct, and we probably, I haven't looked at the rankings for last year, but I'm guessing we're probably, when you look at our size and where we under-levied, we're probably near the top of the districts that would under-levy.
You know, I would just point out to the board, the scenario we're creating here is, it's a good scenario, bad scenario, darned if you do and darned if you don't. We continue, every time our bond consultant comes in, we talk about having top 5, top 6 bond rating of all districts in the state of Wisconsin. We have a nice fund reserve. I think we're making ourselves look good on the short term, but based on state funding, and that's, I think, a discussion for another day. I'm very, very concerned that we are going to be handcuffing future boards. As I understand the current state aid formula, it's on a 3-year rolling average, and once we lose the dollars, we can't recapture them. And I think it's great to show that we're doing our fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers, but when we were under levying $2.5 million last year, now we're under levying $4 million. We will get to the point where we can't recapture those dollars, and it may not be this board, it may not even be the board next term, but it's going to be one of the boards that all of a sudden they're going to hit a wall, and due to the levy limitations, they're simply not going to be able to go back to the taxpayers without a huge increase in the levy, and I'm concerned about that.
Well, I would say in response to your comments, Dick, that although you can't cumulatively recover under levies, you can recover 100% any under levy from the previous year. So the 2.9 million, that is capacity available to us for this year.
When do we lose the opportunity then to recapture that 2.9?
Well, it would change each year. So this year we could recapture the 2.9. If, for instance, we were in the $4 million range for this budget year, we'd be able to recapture the $4 million in the next budget cycle. Right.
Okay. I just, I think this board has done an excellent job. Previous boards have done an excellent job. We're funding our commitments. We have a very nice fund balance, one of the top in the state. We have a top state bond rating. One of the reasons we have all the good scenarios is we have been prudent and we have been disciplined. I just think you reach a threshold where we may be over budgeting to the conservative side, and I just raise that red flag. I'd like to take a look at maybe we bring a bond consultant in, or maybe we bring a financial consultant in as a second opinion. But I see these kind of numbers. I see our growth. Again, I looked in the paper today, and St. Croix County continues to be one of the most rapid growing, if not the fastest growing county in Wisconsin, and here we are going down, 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 down. And I think at some point the lines cross, and I don't want to be on a board that's going to handcuff future boards. So I'm looking long range, not short term. I think as a school board member, I need to be looking long term.
I will say too, one of the things is that one of the reasons you have lower expenses like you do is the number of roofs in the district. Now we will, with the addition of Rivercrest coming on, we will have some additional expenses, obviously, like we had talked about during the referendum. So next year, those expenditures will be going up to account for the opening of Rivercrest and the operation of the school.
I'd like to make a comment on that.
Brian?
So I totally agree with you, Dick. The problem I see, though, is more of a problem with Madison, right? It'd be really silly for us to be forced in a situation to spend more so we don't lose money from the state, right? It's kind of a catch-22.
It is a catch-22.
So I don't know. Maybe this would be this would be one of the nominations we can maybe do as a district, to the WASB and talk about, maybe start the conversation saying that we think the way they allocate funds from the state drives inappropriate behavior, right? Because it could drive us, it could drive some districts to spend more money, and it's always been a frustration of me when I look at public entities, is that the budget from the previous year is based on the budget from, the new budget's based on the previous year. If you don't spend your money, you're not going to get more money from the state, right? And so I think we should at least start a conversation with, maybe we can do it in that format, to say that we don't like getting money from the state based on how much we spend. We should get money in the state based off of how, the size of our district, and and do it that way. So that's my only comment there. Because I would encourage us is, just one other kind of comment is, because I know we look at sometimes in our budget, how much have we spent? Where are we to date in our spending? And it's always frustrated me, and I know there's no easy fix, but I always hate looking at our budget and saying, have we spent all the money we said we're going to spend? And I'd rather it be, how much money are we saving, so we can allocate those dollars to maybe some interesting curriculum ideas of, setting up a video link with, with Mexico or Shanghai versus spending money on making copies. And so I just think that as a district, we should stop looking at, did we spend all the money we say we're going to do, and say, hey, how can we save money in some areas so we can spend it in other areas that may help our students, learn more. So those are just two comments. So.
Okay. Thanks, Dick. Thanks, Brian. I think in partial answer to your question, Dick, we have, I think one of the things we discussed at our Finance Committee meeting was to, discuss with Brian, can't think of his last name. Brian Brewer, the bond consultant that we've used in the past, and, get some of his input in terms of, the balance between, spending and, saving and paying off this or paying off that. So, that is something that we did discuss at the committee meeting level, and so we will be taking a look at it. But, those are valid points for us to consider. So, Tim, do you have some more?
I think that's all I have at this point. So.
Okay. Any other questions for Tim on the budget? If not, we'll move on to the Administrative Service Center update. Tim?
Okay, as Mary mentioned, we're moving some departments out today, and so that's a very good feeling. I think the high school is. I'm wondering when they're going to be holding their party after we leave here. But as you remember, we successfully closed the building despite some of the challenges on July 26th. And one thing I wanted to add, I thought was pretty interesting, is the previous owners had their own appraisal done on that building, and the appraisal came in at $1,884,000 versus our purchase price of $1,450,000. So I think you can feel pretty good. You've had a couple of different appraisals done. I think you feel pretty good that the price we paid was certainly fair. The certificate of occupancy was received. I received that today, and that means that the building codes have been complied with under the renovation out at the service center, and it is now fit to occupy, which is good because, like I said, we've already moved a couple departments in, duplicating human resources, as Mary had mentioned, and learning services. The fiber optic cable extension was completed today, so we expect to have phone service available later afternoon tomorrow. And again, I also want to reiterate my thanks to Jim and his staff. It was pretty interesting. I walked by human resources and furniture was coming out. The next time I walked by, as soon as the furniture was out, walls were coming down. They are very efficient. It's almost scary if you get in their way. I almost got run over once. They're doing a great job, and they're getting. I hear they're getting the furniture out to the building pretty much scratch and dent free. So that's things are going very well.
Thanks, Tim, and again, thanks for your efforts with. I know your office has been busy. I've seen auditor running around and around boxes. And I've seen your staff there into the late hours of the evening, so
That's right.
thanks for your hard work with that.
Yes, I'll just want to thank my staff too. They've been working very, very hard through the move and through the audit, and just providing all the information that's needed.
I would like to add another thank you, and that's to our support staff at the district office, soon to be Administrative Service Center. This is a very busy time of the year, and Diane and all of our assistants and all of the support staff that work in the district office are very taxed at this time to support teachers and getting prepared for the school year. And to add this on, it's very, very significant, and I really appreciate all of their efforts to add extra time to get this done, and just everybody pitching in. And they are to be commended for their work to help us get prepared and then to move out and help us reorganize again.
Thanks, Mary. We'll move on to the other report, River Crest and the Y Camp feasibility study for an underpass. Tim, do you want to lead us through that?
Sure. And I have in attendance tonight, right over in the Lake Coder shirt on the left, Charlie Weimerslag from Stevens Engineering to help answer any questions that you might have tonight. As you know, we've been exploring different opportunities to cooperate and partner with the YMCA in educational programming and facilities. And one of the significant challenges that's been presented is how to move students and staff across the highway safely between the two facilities. You had also approved a feasibility study to examine different ways that we could do that. And the results of that study have really concluded that the safest and most cost-effective way to do that is to really look at an underpass between the YMCA and the new Rivercrest Elementary School. I'll just refer you to a couple pages. You can see the different options that were examined on page 1 of the study. Looked at crosswalks, and it does go into some detail about why those are probably not the best safety-wise. We looked at busing students across. There certainly are some limitations and some ongoing operational costs with that type of thing when you're talking about busing. And we also looked at an overpass structure. Overpasses tend to be much greater in initial cost to build, and then also maintaining they also are more expensive to maintain. So again, thus the conclusion that an underpass is looking like it's the best option. You also have, on the very last page, there are some colored pictures to give you an example of what that overpass could look like. And I believe these were, I believe the top ones were taken just off of Cliff Road, Charlie? Okay. Over in, I believe, around the Burnsville area. And so it gives you a little bit of an idea of what that could look like for us. We're going to attempt to stay away from retaining walls. They're, again, an added maintenance expense. We feel that we can probably do that with sloping. However, we may have to have some guardrails up along the entrance to or the drive past the school. And I will ask you to turn to, we've got a pull-out section. And I see some of my notes got in there, but which are not very good, so I don't pay any attention to those notes. But yeah, isn't it? But if you look down at the bottom of that page, and that would be south, you can see the driveway, and then right next to that is, if you look in that kind of that gray area to the right, lower right corner, just to give you an idea of where this runs, that right corner grayed out area, thin line moving north to south, roughly north to south, is the walking trail that's been proposed that will go around the site. And it happens to line up where we can extend that path. That's I believe about 260 feet. And we extend the path along and run it mainly parallel along the driveway. And then the underpass is that cross-hatched area across the roadway. And then again, it would run another roughly 260 feet onto the Y property and come out on their drive, on the inside of their drive. The size of the underpass, and it's also known as a box culvert. There's cement structures, but the size is it's about 70 feet in length. And it's also it's an 8 by 10. Going to that size will allow us to actually drive a truck through it, to plow it, and to maintain it. Actually, some of the box culverts you might see are 8 by 8, and the additional cost involved is pretty small when you go up to that additional 2 feet, and we really get a little more maintenance efficiency if we can get a truck through with a plow. We are going to be required to be ADA compliant with the installation, so that may include handrails and that type of thing on the approaches. I have several notes here, and I guess I just might open it up other than adding one other thing, and that's, of course, cost. And if you turn to page, actually Appendix B in the back of the report, you can see that the cost, including contingencies, is about $211,000. We also have an alternate, and that would be to pave the trail, the approaches leading up to that, and that would be about an additional $11,000. There was one other option that we did not include, and that was lighting. Some of the examples that you see there do have lighting. We're working on getting a cost estimate for that to light the tunnel. The tunnel will have security. We'll have gates on each end, locking gates on each end, so that we can restrict access. We want to keep it safe for students. We don't want people who shouldn't be there hanging around the tunnel, so we'll be able to control the access to the tunnel. Hope you have any other, we probably do have other questions. But
Thanks, Tim. Any questions for Tim regarding the tunnel? I guess I have one just regarding, discussions with the Y Camp and sort of a joint project. Is that?
Yes, you're right. Yep, this would be in partnership with the Y.
Okay. Tom?
And I guess I'm reading into that question, but I think the cost of this feasibility study was shared by both the Y and the school district, so.
You're right. Thank you.
I have a question.
Cindy?
The gates presumably will keep people out of the tunnel when it's not in use, but to what extent will the entrances of that represent areas of low visibility, especially on the side of the Y? And on our side too, but it looks more open on the one side than it does on the other.
Yeah. Well, our goal would be to try to keep that whole area as visible as we can, but that's a good question. I think we might need to talk a little bit more and get some clarification for ourselves on that visibility. But any of those open areas, and, even not talking about the overpass, but the new school in general, we've been very aware of making sure we use the right vegetation, trees that wouldn't hide someone well. But it's a very good question, and would continue that on on the underpass.
Tim, I'm just curious, you said we shared the cost of this feasibility study with the Y. What's taking place with regard to discussions about sharing the cost of the tunnel itself?
Well, I think we're in a very preliminary stages right now, and this was just a feasibility study to get an idea of what it would cost and what it would look like. Mary or Tom may have something to add to that, too.
Every meeting we have had in regard to the underpass has included both representatives from the Y and the school district. So we've worked on this jointly together, and we'll be discussing moving forward together. That's our assumption at the present time. And later on in the agenda, we are going to talk about funding in relationship to that. So that should address some more of your questions,
Okay.
I'm assuming, Mark.
And perhaps it will. So the assumption is somewhat that this will be a true partnership in every sense of the word.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks.
Tim, is there a timeline with the excavation going on or the road work that, and maybe that's coming up later too, but.
Well, yes, we'd certainly like to do this in conjunction with the road improvements that the county's going to be making at County Trunk F. Right now, they're looking at a spring construction schedule, so probably around May of '08. And so that does give us some time. However, I guess I would add, too, Stevens Engineers has already drawn some of the grade elevations for this into the drawings and has incorporated that into some of the site work, so that rather than having to go back and redo that, if everything comes together, those things would be in place. And really not at an additional cost. It's a matter of just regrading those items and taking care of that now rather than having to go back and do it later.
There are two advantages to really doing it at the same time that the road work will be done. First, of course, would be inconvenience for those people who use County Highway F, and then the other one would be there is a cost savings. We anticipate, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, about 5 lanes above this box culvert. And so if we would wait until that was constructed and then at a later date put in the underpass, it would be a significant cost difference at that time. So it really is advantageous to us to do it right at the present time and make sure that we're doing it in concert at the same time that the road work is being done.
Thank you. Any other questions for Tim? Did you have any more, Tim, on that, or?
No, I was just going to add that Mary's absolutely correct that the cost there just represents the cost of materials and installation. If you to go out past that and decide after the road work's been done, the cost would increase significantly.
Okay, thanks, Tim. We'll move on to the next item on reports, the timeline and process for redistricting elementary schools and the elementary teacher transfer reassignment process. Nancy?
Okay. We are in the midst of planning for the opening of Rivercrest Elementary in the fall of 2008, and there are 2 major undertakings associated with the opening, in addition to all the construction work, et cetera. And the first is redistricting, or in other words, redrawing the elementary school boundaries. And the second is the transfer and the reassignment of staff. The tentative timeline for the redistricting is first in September. I am planning to meet with parent representatives from each of the elementary schools who will advise regarding the guidelines for redistricting. Then in October through December, we'll gather all the necessary data, and we'll evaluate several plans against our goal, which is to balance the elementary enrollment within our class size guidelines for the efficient use of all of our elementary schools. And we'll also evaluate our plans against the guidelines suggested by the parent representatives. Thirdly, the redistricting decision, we would plan to have made that decision and have communicated that decision by the end of January, which then would take us to the transfer and reassignment process. We've designed this process also in conversation with our teacher union representatives. The process, and it's on page 18, and this process was reviewed at our Personnel Committee meeting last night. This process allows for the active participation of all of our elementary school teachers, no matter where they teach and what they currently teach. It's also a process that generally aligns with the contract we already have in place with our teachers. It does accelerate decisions about transfer and reassignment on the back end so that we can get started with the new community building that we would need to do, the curriculum work, and also staff development actually by spring of next year, and then continuing through the summer in readiness for the opening of the school in the fall. It does provide teachers also with a specific opportunity to be heard by an administrator if they disagree with the transfer or reassignment decision. Referring to the material now, we would plan to start meeting with all of our elementary school staff by the middle of October. We would, and again, linking this to the redistricting and the redrawing of the boundary lines, we would anticipate that we would know the positions that would be available, and we would post them by the end of January. Within 2 weeks after that posting, then we would be soliciting from all of our teachers their preferences and interests so that we might include those in our consideration. We will be trying to balance experience, expertise, leadership, team collaboration abilities in all of our 6 elementaries. And we will give serious consideration to our teachers' preferences, but we're certain that we won't always be able to guarantee those preferences. Hopefully, one of their choices, perhaps. Then, by the end of February, then we would be communicating to all teachers who would be transferred and reassigned what those transfers would be. They would have the opportunity to meet with an administrator, and that would be done by the end of March, and then by the beginning, on or before April 1st, we would notify them in writing of the final placements for the 2008-09 school year. The teachers have looked at this pretty favorably. We've had discussions with them about this process, and as I said, it aligns almost perfectly with what's in the contract. The exception is that the contract talks about February 1st being the deadline for teachers to communicate to the administration their wishes to transfer. We would be granting perhaps 1 to 2 weeks more for them to provide that information to us, and we would expect they wouldn't object to that, being given a little bit longer time to communicate. With this process, the teachers do not waive their right to grieve a transfer or reassignment that they disagree with. but we are hopeful that for the most part, that we will achieve our goals, and the teachers will, again, for the most part, be satisfied with their placements.
Thank you, Nancy. Any questions for Nancy? Mary?
I just wanted to add, we talked at a meeting last night about putting an opportunity on our website for community members, particularly parents, to comment, make suggestions to be considered during this process. And I met with Tracy Habishaline today, our communication specialist, and she will be working on that. So sometime in the near future, we will have that up and running so that community members, parents can make comments and suggestions for consideration.
Okay, thank you. If there's no other comments or questions for Nancy, we'll move on to topics for action. And I'll entertain a motion for the consent items. And I think that's a separate sheet that you have. Cindy, are you prepared?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I move that the Director of Financial Services be authorized to pay bills in the amount of $3,124,465.68, and also that we approve the personnel items as listed.
Okay, we have a motion by Cindy. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Brian. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion is approved. We'll move on to topics for action, item 11B, authorization to pursue private funding sources for LEED certification in County Highway F underpass for Rivercrest Elementary. Dick, do you want to address that?
I'll quickly take this. We've talked a long time about Rivercrest, and we've gone to the public talking about sustainable design, green building, and supporting that through LEED certification. And we won't get into LEED tonight, what that is, but we do have costs associated with that. We think we are able to go out to the community and certain parties in the community to raise the funds for LEED certification. This will be, as far as we know, the only elementary school in the state of Wisconsin that will be LEED certified. So we think that when we are able to tell our story, we will be able to secure funding in support of the certification. We are estimating right now about $150,000 for that. It's about a 2-year process, 1 year leading up to actual occupancy of the building, and then 1 year after occupancy so that the building can be monitored to verify by an independent party that we indeed have met our goals for LEED certification and indeed have brought a sustainable building on board. The second part is to be able to go out to the community and secure funding for the underpass between Rivercrest and the St. Croix camp. And we felt that it would be better to come to the board and just be right above board, pardon the pun, and let the public be knowledgeable that we will be seeking partners in the funding for both LEED certification for Rivercrest and also for the underpass between the Y and Rivercrest.
Okay, thank you. Dick, questions?
Who's going to lead that effort on the board?
I think both Tom and I have both pretty much stepped forward. I've been so involved with Rivercrest that it's kind of a passion, so I'll be involved with that. Happy to do that. We think we've got a great story to tell, and we think we will be able to secure partners to help us in that story.
Well, I sure appreciate it, you guys doing that. And just, and I think it's probably pretty clear that the school, especially being LEED certified, the vendors and the people who participate in that school, providing supplies, they're going to, there's a marketing opportunity for them. I imagine, hopefully, raising money is not going to be, it's going to take an effort, but hopefully you're going to find a lot of willing people able to participate in that thing. So Thanks for, that's a lot of work, though, so we sure appreciate it.
Just a
So,
quick comment. I know Tom probably has a comment, but we share the same opinion, Brian, that it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful asset for the community, and we think we will be able to find the partners to participate in that funding of the LEED certification process.
Well, I think this is great that we're looking at private funding for some of these things, and so appreciate you guys putting in your little extra more time and to raise some money for the district. So.
Well, I will say this, I'll have to work far harder and longer because I'm sure Mr. Holland will be far more effective at this than I will be.
He's a pro.
Tom, do you
Just a comment, I think going back to Mark's question about the relationship and partnership between the Y and the school, the Y will certainly be involved in terms of its name and so forth, its involvement regarding its partnership with the school, which I think only strengthens the case and the cause. I think the school will be, somebody's got to take a lead on this, and we'll do that as a school. I kind of wear a couple of hats here, so it's might be a little dicey or tricky, but my sense is that if there's capacity out there for this, there will be willing ears. I believe that, and I think we can show a broad benefit to our community, which many of these, a number of these major benefactors have interest in. So we'll see.
Thanks, Tom, and thanks, Dick, for agreeing to serve that. I guess so one other point I'd just like to, and I know we're all in agreement with this, but, the partnership is not just with Rivercrest. It truly is with the school district and all of our schools. So, the benefits that we're going to accrue, by having a school there and working together, I think is going to benefit all of our schools as it has in the past. So I don't see, any of our schools being left out of this, benefit discussion that we've had. So.
Yeah, one thing I know that the fifth graders all are going on a overnighter at the YMCA, which I'm happy to do, spend an evening with a bazillion fifth graders.
See how you feel afterwards, Brian. I did that myself.
So talking about,
Been there, done that.
so we'll see how much of a benefactor the Y is to my personal health. So.
Just call Tom.
I'll entertain a motion for the authorization for those individuals and others to pursue private funding sources.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the board to pursue private funding sources for the LEED certification and County Highway F underpass for Rivercrest Elementary.
Okay, we have a motion by Brian,
I'll second that.
second by Mark. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion is approved. We'll move on to board committees, advisory council reports. Tom, I know we've covered a lot of, do you have anything else to add on the finance?
Not really,
committee?
just that there was one agenda item, view of the preliminary quarterly financial report was on the agenda but was not covered because of computer snafu, so we didn't have good numbers. So it'll be visited at the next meeting or another time.
Okay. The personnel committee meeting, Mark?
That was fast. Yes, thanks, Dan. Like Tom, we've covered a lot of our, in the Finance Committee, we've covered a lot of it, what we discussed last night in the Personnel Committee, and Nancy Sweet has addressed that. The timeline for redistricting and teacher transfer reassignment and the process for that. I guess Nancy went through it very well. I don't need to go through that other than just the comment that I think it's a well thought out process, very inclusive, and I just know that Nancy and her staff will do everything they can to accommodate the teachers' desires and, of course, the needs of our students, which obviously are paramount. And I know there can be a lot of anxiety associated with the transfer and reassignment. I certainly understand that, but I really have great faith that that will be minimized to the greatest extent possible. So, the other item that the Personnel Committee took up was a revisiting, I guess, of the Board of Education goals for the district for 07-08, and these are the goals that we had drafted for our spring evaluation of our superintendent, Mary. And this was, I guess, brought up in consideration of what the needs of our district are going to be for the upcoming year, and sort of a prioritizing where we put our energy and resources. I guess I just say for the most part, and these are just, preliminary drafts, the goals, I guess, in essence, haven't changed greatly. There's a little bit more focus and some changes that I would, I guess, term to be fairly minor, and obviously we'll all have a opportunity to review them and offer input and feedback before any type of action plan is put together. But I think it's fair to characterize the Personnel Committee opinion as being favorable and supportive of the change of these goals. That is all.
Thank you. Questions for Mark? Okay, thank you.
I guess just a comment. I think
Cindy.
I would call them, rather than changes to the goals, they really are more like a formalization, because the substance of them is not changing, only, crafting the wording of them and associating specific kinds of evidence with those goals and things that we'll be looking for. So really in terms of finalizing rather than redrafting or redrawing.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll go with the full board, I imagine, for review, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I don't think there's anything else on the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Citizen comments?
Oh, I don't have any citizens'
Oh, okay.
comments to speak, so.
Move to adjourn?
A motion
Second.
second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Thank you, everyone.
Hey, we made pretty short work of that.